Right. So, Peter, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us about not only this issue, the crypto moratorium that we have now in New York State, but also your story that we published earlier today. For those who might have been a little unplugged on this issue up until the signing of the bill, give us sort of the 101, the basics of the moratorium.
Well, the bill really has two parts to it. The moratorium, we'll talk about that first. The moratorium applies to what it says is the state may not grant any new or renewed air permits to fossil fuel power plants that power cryptocurrency, proof of work cryptocurrency operations. So it's very narrowly tailored, the moratorium. And in fact, I should say this about it: the moratorium right now is not really necessary to stop this kind of a conversion of a plant, because the economics right now of doing Bitcoin mining are horrible. And there's no, so with or without the moratorium, there probably would not be any more attempts to try to copy the greenage business model. Okay, so that's the moratorium part of the bill. The other part of the bill that I think is going to be much more important is that the State Department of Environmental Conservation will be doing an environmental impact statement, a generic environmental impact statement, looking at the total effect of cryptocurrency mining in New York State. That gets to all of the power that is used and all the greenhouse gases that are emitted as a result of that power use. And the DEC will also be analyzing how all this energy use and these emissions are going to impact our climate goals that are set out in the 2019 climate law, state climate law. And a lot of scientists have said there's really no way to meet the targets mandated by that climate law if you let cryptocurrency mining go on or expand. So they really want to rein it in some way.
And you pointed to it a little bit, I think, there, but expand if you could. Where do folks, especially those on the advocacy side, feel like this fell short, or what else needs to be done to really take care of this issue and button it up?
Well, there were a group of environmental advocates who were on a press conference yesterday, and all of them were applauding Governor Hochul for finally signing the bill after many months of delay. She did sign it. Now, many of them also said, why don't you just shut down the two examples of what you're trying to prevent, the Greenish Generation plant and the DigiHost operation in North Tonawanda? The problem with that is she doesn't have like a button that can turn off those plants. If she issued an order today to shut down those plants, no doubt the companies would immediately appeal. It would be very complicated. It would probably drag on for very months, if not years. You'd have to even have an assessment of what impact would closing the plants down have on the electric grid, for example. But so anyway, the advocates would love to see her just order them shut down, but that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Or at least if she does make the order, it won't go into effect right away.
Would she? I guess my curiosity is, would she even consider that, given what we've seen out of headlines over the last, say, 2 to 3 months? Obviously, you mentioned Bitcoin right now is in a state of complete chaos. The economics of it aren't really working right now in terms of mining. And Greenwich, as one example, is in pretty tough shape economically. So is it kind of a wait and say? Do you think maybe the state is taking a wait and see approach to this?
Well, I really don't expect the governor to issue an order, oh, we're closing the plants. That I really don't see that as happening. They were asking for it, but that's kind of it's pretty unrealistic and impractical at this point. And right now, I mean, Greenwich is appealing the DEC's denial of its bid to renew its air permit, and that the company has said could take years to resolve. Meanwhile, they get to operate. They get to continue using all the energy that they care to use, and emitting quite a bit of greenhouse gases.
Years to resolve, and yet only about 7 or 8 months worth of cash on hand to continue operating. Is there a potential collision there in terms of what's practical for Greenwich moving forward?
Yeah, now Greenwich said in a SEC filing, because they're a public company, their stock is publicly traded, they're required to file these quarterly reports and more with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and those reports can be very revealing. They have to fess up about a lot of a lot of weaknesses within their operation. And one of the things they said in their most recent quarterly filing with the SEC was that we think our cash is going to run out by the end of March, and maybe before that. And the problem is that when the price of Bitcoin was riding high about a year ago, they were gung ho on buying the latest expensive computers to try to mine Bitcoin, and they borrowed very heavily at very high interest rates, up to 17 and 18%, and they in bonds at 8 or 9%. So this, it's expensive debt that they took on, but they were confident that they were going to earn it back by Bitcoin mining. Well, that works until the market price of Bitcoin collapses, which it has since late last year. So that's where they're kind of in a pinch right now. They have a liquidity problem, meeting their principal and interest payments on their debt, which they had to take out to buy the machines. And they spent tens of millions of dollars on those machines.
And this decision, or this law, I should say, now that it is a law, it doesn't have any impact on Greenwich specifically, right? It kind of bypasses them.
It does, because they're grandfathered. Both Greenwich and DigiHost in North Tonawanda near Buffalo. Both of those are grandfathered. They're allowed to continue operating.
Did we see any reaction from Greenwich, even though it didn't directly impact them? Or I guess just out of curiosity, any reaction from the crypto community in general?
Well, there was a lot of effort to try to stop or prevent Hochul from signing the bill, and for a long time she did it, because I think that the bill passed both chambers of the legislature earlier in the year. I think it had passed both chambers by the summer, and people were wondering, why didn't she just sign the bill? And she had an election coming up, so that was certainly a factor, I think. And legally, she had the leeway to hold off on doing that. So she waited till after the election. But there was a lot of pressure from the environmental advocacy community to sign the bill.
We've also seen, I guess, the business community has come out opposed to this decision, even though it seems, I've read in some corners of the crypto world over the last 48 hours that there are other methods of mining, methods that aren't as environmentally impactful as this particular method. Do you make anything of that? The business advocacy groups coming in to crypto's rescue here?
Well, I mean, business groups obviously they tend not to be in favor of regulation. They want to let business do its thing. So that's speaking very, very generally. And some people who have been opposed to this legislation have said, well, they're just trying to kill cryptocurrency in New York. And Anna Kellis, who is the sponsor of this bill, says, no, that's not what I'm doing at all. She's saying that there is an important distinction between the types of cryptocurrency. Some use enormous amounts of energy. The proof of work model that Bitcoin relies on uses enormous amounts of energy and causes all the emissions. There is an up and coming new type of operation called proof of stake, which is different from proof of work and uses less than 1% of the energy that proof of work uses. So, and it's important to say that the moratorium does not apply to proof of stake, which is the more energy conscious way to run a cryptocurrency operation. Now, Bitcoin uses proof of work, which guzzles energy. The number two current cryptocurrency, Ethereum, has recently, they say, converted to proof of stake, which doesn't use as much energy. So it looks like the market is beginning to develop for an alternative to Bitcoin. And Kellis would argue that, hey, I'm going after the energy guzzlers, not the others. I'm leaving the others alone. So she's drawing a distinction. I think some of the opponents of the bill are trying to blur the distinction. They're saying, oh, you're just going after all the cryptocurrency.
So we have the bill is now law, and that is settled. And it seems like that has been a big talking point over the last, say, 6 months. So now that is out of the way, what's next? What are you watching next in terms of the next development or next maybe shoot or drop on this whole crypto Greenwich Finger Lakes environmental story?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think that the cash issue at Greenwich is very important. Because of the cash issue, their stock prices tumbled, and they are getting close to having to worry about being delisted by the NASDAQ stock market. There are several situations in which NASDAQ aggressively goes after a company and says, we're going to delist you, and then the company can appeal and all that. But one of the situations is if your stock trades under $1 for, I believe it's 1 month. And now, I don't know how many days it's been, but Greenwich has been under $1 for some time now. It's about 58, 59 cents right now as we speak. But it's been sliding steadily. So that is a danger. If you look at some of the chat boards, a lot of the investors in this stock are using the bankruptcy word that they might file for bankruptcy protection. That wouldn't necessarily, by the way, stop the operation. There are forms of bankruptcy protection that allow you to continue operating. So, but all of this could be developing in the next few months. And also, I'm really curious to see, given the lack of cash on hand, whether they're going to be able to do the required improvements to the water intake pipe. They've said they're going to meet that deadline in January, but I'll be watching to see whether they do actually make that investment and do that work, or whether they seek another delay.
Yeah. Peter, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for taking it today.
Okay. Enjoyed it. Thank you.